A blood-soaked battleground where restless spirits wander, a weathered old graveyard harboring the ghosts of men killed in violent duels, and a remote island resort where the dead never truly rest await on this list of some of the most haunted places in Georgia. Let's jump right in. Hey guys, and thanks for joining me on this journey to some of the most haunted places in the Empire State of the South, being Georgia. Recognized for its historic cities and structures, ties to the Civil War and to the very founding of our nation, for its old plantations, breathtaking nature expanses, and so much more, Georgia is also a state that's absolutely saturated in old hill folklore, chilling ghost stories, and tales of curses, the occult, and the unknown. And honestly, you won't believe what we've dug up for this one. Are you sure you're ready to get started? Okay, so our first haunt lands us on the northern coast of Georgia at the Tybee Island Light. The Tybee Island Light Station, which is located where else but on Tybee Island in Georgia, is a widely recognizable tower standing as one of 7 surviving colonial-era lighthouses in existence. Its bounds and surrounding landscapes harbor a host of chilling ghost stories and tales of encounters with the unknown. Historically, our current Tybee Island Light is actually the 4th and most modern tower erected on site. Originally, the first of such lighthouses, which was built entirely of wood, was constructed in 1736 under the direction of the famous British officer James Oglethorpe. This primary tower, however, was only a temporary safety measure and was replaced the following year with our second tower, which was comprised of stone and wood, but that still lacked illumination. Unfortunately, as time passed, this second tower would be claimed by erosion, and in 1773, a third tower was constructed under John Mulrine and was comprised of hardy brickwork. Initially, this third tower sported reflective gear and candles, but following its ceding to the federal government in 1790, it would be retrofitted with oil lamps, and shortly after, in 1822, an auxiliary tower would be added alongside our main light system, after which, in 1857, both of these towers would be upgraded to Fresnel lenses. Sadly, in 1862, the Confederate Army would decimate the site amidst their retreat to Fort Pulaski, stealing its lenses and burning standing structures to the ground. However, in 1866, reconstruction of the Tybee Island Light we know today was started, and when complete, this new construct would tote an upgraded first-order Fresnel lens. In 1871, our current Tybee Island Tower would be damaged in a hurricane, resulting in the construction of a new front tower with iron framing. From 1881 to 1885, new keepers' residences were completed. In 1886, the Charleston earthquake would yield further damages to residual brickwork, though this was quickly repaired. In 1933, the tower was electrified, and in 1972, and like many of its peers, the station was fully automated. More recently, in 1999, a major restoration of the light was launched under the Tybee Island Historical Society, and in 2002, the society would take possession of the light under the National Historic Lighthouse Preservation Act, ensuring its ongoing preservation for generations to come. In the present, the Tybee Island Light remains in operation and is also open to the public as a popular historic site, with the surrounding island offering a host of attractions including sandy beaches, piers and pavilions, hiking trails, and even old fort ruins. But the Tybee Island Light isn't known for its endearing points of interest alone, and over its many years, the whole of its grounds have played host to a number of spine-tingling local legends, with both visitors and officials reporting odd patches of fog that descend upon the property alone, strange malfunctions with personal electronics or instances of batteries dying at abnormal rates, and encounters with shadowy manifestations that are usually spied out of the peripheral. A handful of investigations of the expanse have yielded high EMF levels, chilling EVPs, and hits on spirit boxes, while others have told of run-ins with various full-bodied apparitions in clothing spanning the eras, and an occasional phantom whistling that's heard drifting on the winds. Finally, easily the most famous entities observed at the Tybee Island Light Station are that of an unidentified man in old lightkeeper's garb that often roams the old keeper's residence, and that's been mistaken for a living person before he fades away in the blink of an eye, and that of a little girl that some guess at around 5 years in age, who always appears to visitors ascending the tower to warn them to proceed no further up the steps. Our second haunt takes us just to the north of Atlanta to the blood-soaked Kennesaw Mountain National Battlefield. The Kennesaw Mountain National Battlefield, which is located in Cobb County, Georgia, is a massive 2,913-acre expanse memorializing a highly significant battle of the American Civil War, whose very name, being Kennesaw, is derived from the Cherokee word Ganesa, which actually translates to cemetery or burial grounds, and its bounds are tied to a range of chilling ghost stories and tales of encounters with the otherworldly. Historically, human habitation of Kennesaw Mountain itself dates back to ancient times, with Cherokee history tracking to around 1000 BCE, and later, from around 900 CE to 1700, groups of mound builders would complete a number of earthen constructs near. Following European colonization, the mountain itself would dwell in relative obscurity until the Civil War, when, on June 18th of 1864, Union forces under the command of General William Tecumseh Sherman met Confederate forces under the command of General Joseph E. Johnston in brutal combat that lasted until the 2nd of July of the same year. Notably, Sherman's forces numbered a jaw-dropping 100,000 men, 35,000 horses, and 254 cannons, while Johnston's boasted only 50,000 men and 187 cannons. Johnston, who planned to block Sherman's advance, would take up a defensive position, all while Sherman would order waves of direct assaults, and when all was said and done, the fight was deemed a Confederate victory, with casualties numbering around 5,350. Decades after the battle, on February 18th of 1917, the Kennesaw Mountain National Battlefield site was established to better preserve and commemorate the expanse. On August 10th of 1933, the whole of the plot was transferred from the War Department to the National Park Service. In 1935, it was designated a national military park, and on October 15th of 1966, the battle would be listed on the National Register of Historic Places. Today, the whole of park grounds are a popular region for hikers, history and nature enthusiasts, paranormal investigators, and more. They contain a range of old structures, memorials, burying grounds, trails, and countless points of interest. Not surprisingly, the whole of Kennesaw Mountain totes a chilling legacy of supernatural happenings ranging from native spirits and legends, up through the restless apparitions of those killed in its infamous battle. And throughout the region, visitors and park officials alike have reported shadowy figures sighted slinking amongst the trees, instances of well-maintained vehicles stalling out or refusing to start, and the glows of phantom fires spotted at a distance that always seem to disappear when approached. Several ancient native tales tell of strong energies or spirits across the whole of the expanse, and of terrifying cryptids from local lore, and some have told of the sightings of figures clad in traditional attire, of ghostly animals, more often than not deer that charge at the living, and of run-ins with hominid creatures such as wendigo, skinwalkers, skunk ape, and even large black panther-like beasts. A handful of investigations of the area have yielded high EMF levels, crystal clear EVPs, and orbs captured in photography and video, while others have told of cameras and phones malfunctioning, of odd transmissions heard over radios, and of the discovering of cult or ritual sites. Regarding the Civil War, some believe energies resulting from the Battle of Kennesaw Mountain still linger, and many have reported the ghostly sounds of gun and cannon fire, the clash of battle, cries and screams, and even the smells of blood and burning flesh, while a handful of accounts detail parties coming across entire scenes where soldiers are locked in combat that they at first believe reenactments before blinking to find these scenes have faded away. And on to number 3, which has us skirting the state's most popular aquatic recreation site, being the ever-famous Lake Lanier. Lake Lanier, which is located in North Georgia, about 50 miles from Atlanta, is a massive and popular 38,000-acre aquatic expanse, widely recognized for its recreational opportunities, that's grown in infamy for a rather dark history and associated ghost stories and tales of the paranormal. Historically, Lanier was initially created with the construction of the Buford Dam on the Chattahoochee River, a project that was authorized by the U.S. Congress in 1946 to provide hydroelectric power, flood control, navigation, and water supply to the Atlanta area. This construction began in 1950 and was completed by 1956, after which the new reservoir would derive its moniker from the 19th century Georgian poet and musician Sidney Lanier. Sadly and controversially, the creation of Lake Lanier led to the flooding of several communities, including the historic African-American town of Oscarville, and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers managed the project, which required the rather unethical displacement of several thousand other people for a grand total of 250 families and 15 businesses businesses, as well as the relocating or arbitrary drowning of 20 long-standing cemeteries, because that always bodes well for the haunts that I've covered. Today, the lake spans 59 square miles, has become a significant source of water for the region, and has grown in renown for its plentiful recreational activities including boating, fishing, hiking, camping, and all manner of water sports. Into the present, Lake Lanier is still managed by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers and remains a crucial resource for surrounding communities, and on a much eerier note, has also earned its fair share of infamy related to the relatively high number of accidents and fatalities that have transpired on site, partly due to its popularity and extensive use. Disturbingly, the whole of Lanier is rumored to be haunted due to a number of grave mistakes. No pun intended. From burial sites that were never moved, to those displaced by the lake's creation, to the hundreds if not thousands who have lost their lives near over the years, 27 of which whose bodies were never recovered, many frequenting its bounds report encounters with shadowy figures, instances of cold, clammy hands grasping at swimmers' ankles, and rampant cryptid sightings that range from water monsters to unimaginable beasts that stalk nearby forests. On surrounding roadways, phantom vehicles spanning the eras, and that many attribute to the numerous fatal car accidents that have transpired near, have been known to chase motorists at great lengths, and especially after dark, before spontaneously disappearing, while others tell of fantastical scenes in which they've stumbled upon or driven through entire ghost towns that seem solid, but that they can never again relocate. Lanier's most famous tale, being that of the infamous Lady of the Lake, is actually pretty terrifying, and according to legend, may be the reason for all of its unconventional drownings. As it's told, in 1958, two friends, being one Delia Mae Parker Young and Susie Roberts, departed a dance near the lake, following which they filled up on gas at a local station before skipping out on the bill and, in a rush to escape, sliding off a bridge and into the depths of the blackened waters, never to be seen again. The following year, a fisherman would come across a badly decomposed body in a blue dress floating near one of the expanse's many bridges. But it wasn't until much later, in 1990, when officials would discover a 1950s Ford sedan holding the remains of Susie Roberts, meaning that the first body must have belonged to Parker Young. Perturbingly, from the time of this fatal incident and up into the present, the spirit of Parker Young, or the Lady of the Lake, has been encountered on numerous occasions, manifesting as a threatening, pale, and slightly glowing phantom in a blue dress who's missing her hands, and whom it's told holds a penchant for dragging unsuspecting victims to the bottom of the lake and off to God knows where. Number 4 takes us to one of the US's haunted capital cities, being Savannah, to the Colonial Park Cemetery. Colonial Park Cemetery, which is located in Savannah, Georgia, is a historic burying grounds and park that, over the years, has grown massively in renown due to its lengthy existence and significance to its city, and that also harbors a good deal of infamy for a purported slew of associated supernatural encounters. Historically, Colonial Park was first established way back in 1750 as the Christ Church Parish Graveyard, in a time when Savannah was still the capital of the British province of Georgia, which actually stood as the last of the original 13 colonies. Over subsequent years, the yard would welcome 3 separate expansions, resulting in its growth to its current size of 6 acres, and in 1789, the site would be officialized as a suitable final resting place for locals from all walks of life and denominations. On a side note, this old cemetery would see its final burial in 1850 and was actually closed for a time in 1853, just 8 years preceding the Civil War. So unlike other southern boneyards we've covered, it actually harbors no Confederate graves. Also through the war, unfortunately, a handful of Union soldiers would commandeer cemetery grounds, and during their stay would damage or deface a number of monuments, and would even go so far as to alter dates and ages, and break open several vaults to use as shelters. Today, Colonial Park stands as a popular historical monument not just to those who are buried within, but also to the city of Savannah itself. Amongst its most famous interments are one Button Gwinnett, who actually signed the Declaration of Independence, and who was later killed in a duel with Lachlan McIntosh on May 19th of 1777, and also that of Major General Nathaniel Greene, who was actually originally buried here following his death in 1786, but whose remains were lost for a time before they were relocated within the Graham family vault and were subsequently moved to the Nathaniel Greene Monument in Johnson Square. Colonial Park remains open into the present, with entry available from dawn until dusk, and is even a stop on several local historical and paranormal tours. Alongside its use as a burying grounds through the late 17 and early 1800s, Colonial Park also acted as a popular dueling site, where egos were shattered and where pride often led to an early grave. Such was the case of the aforementioned Button Gwinnett and his spirit, along with countless additional spirits of various unidentified duelists, have been viewed lurking about, bearing grievous wounds, and sometimes still locked in the throes of combat. Also reported across the whole of cemetery grounds and confined to no area in particular are disembodied voices and strange noises heard by those passing by after dark, extreme cold patches felt in the normally balmy savanna weather, and an odd green mist that settles around certain markers or sometimes the entire yard. By far the most famous legend surrounding Colonial Park is that of a man named René Rondelier. As the story goes, Rondelier, who was born in 1777, lived right next door to the cemetery. As fable has it, he was a mountain of a man who had a thick coat of hair covering every inch of his body and several mental issues. As he got older, René was known for nabbing up neighborhood pets, after which he would torture and eventually kill them. And things got so bad, in fact, that it's said that a wall was built around his home to keep him from getting out. But this didn't deter René for long, and eventually his focus graduated from animals to little girls, whose frail necks he would snap with his massive hands, and whose bodies he would hide in a series of tunnels beneath the graveyard. One night, however, it's told that René forgot to cover up his gigantic footprints, resulting in an angry mob arriving at his doorstep. Eventually, this mob detained Rondelier, transported him to a nearby swamp, and hanged him from one of the trees there, leaving him for dead. Disturbingly, and rather shockingly though, following his alleged execution, the bodies of more victims began turning up, begging the question, had René somehow escaped his fate, or had his vengeful spirit simply returned to his former hunting grounds? Whatever the case, to date, many have described terrifying encounters with the ghost of René Rondelier, who manifests as an unbelievably sized silhouette that's been known to chase those who cross his path, and that's even attacked several less fortunate visitors. Saving the best for last, it's time to hit Georgia's southern coast and the infamous Jekyll Island Club. The Jekyll Island Club, which is located where else but on Jekyll Island in Georgia, is a sweeping resort grounds and golf destination that's grown massively in fame and popularity over its many years, and its deceptively serene bounds are claimed to play host to an alarming range of ghostly presences and supernatural infestations. Historically, the club itself was first founded in 1886 as a highly esteemed and private institution under John Eugene de Binion, who purchased the island for $125,000 and who aimed to transform it into an exclusive game resort. The site's iconic grand clubhouse was initially constructed by January of 1888 and would quickly grow into a premier vacation hotspot for some of America's wealthiest families, including the Morgans, the Rockefellers, and the Vanderbilts, and it would thrive through activities such as hunting, golf, carriage driving, and tennis. Over its years, the Jekyll Island Club would also play a huge role in U.S. history, hosting meetings between dozens of wealthy politicians and financiers. And in 1910, it would even accommodate Senator Nelson Aldrich alongside reps from J.P. Morgan as they literally drafted and laid the groundwork for the creation of our Federal Reserve. Through the early 20th century, the club would continue to flourish until the Great Depression hit, resulting in membership numbers dwindling. And while the 1930s would usher in several attempts at breathing new life into the resort, World War II would ultimately lead to its closure at the end of the 1942 season. In 1947, the whole of Jekyll Island was purchased from remaining club members for $675,000 by the state of Georgia, after which the state would attempt to run the club as a resort, but ultimately, the cost of operations would far outweigh profits, and in 1971, the entire complex was forced to close its doors. For 7 years, the island would lie dormant until 1978 when, in recognition of its historic significance, it was declared a historic landmark. And following this declaration, it would undergo massive restoration and modernization efforts, resulting in its reopening in 1985 as the luxury resort called the Jekyll Island Club Hotel. In the present, the Jekyll Island Club remains a popular tourist destination and a member of the Historic Hotels of America, offering a wide array of activities, historical and educational points of interest, and an unparalleled lodging and dining experience. But it's not all fun and games on Jekyll Island, and over its many years, both guests and staff members have reported a jaw-dropping range of supernatural happenings, including objects sighted moving on their own, faucets and showers within locked rooms discovered turned on, and instances of suitcases found packed or unpacked within impossible timeframes. One of the most famous Jekyll Island ghost stories surrounds the main club itself. As history and legend have it, predating the club's opening, one founding member, General Lloyd Aspinwall, was set to be the resort's first president. However, on September 4th of 1886, he would pass on unexpectedly, just a year before the grand opening. Shortly after this opening, however, dated letters from club members claim with utmost certainty that they actually saw the general, or his ghost rather, wandering the veranda on his death anniversary being September 4th. And today, that very area, which is now a sunroom, is named in honor as the Aspinwall Room. Up into more recent times, a figure bearing a strong resemblance to the general is often sighted here, and has even been known to interact with guests for a time before fading away into nothingness. Another popular tale surrounds various buildings and dining areas across the resort and tells of how guests often leave their tables for mere seconds only to return to find their coffee sipped and their newspaper ruffled through. These odd phenomena are believed to be the work of the ghost of one Samuel Spencer, who, through the late 19th and early 20th century, acted as president of the Southern Railroad Company preceding his death by train accident in 1906. In life, and each morning, old Sammy wouldn't make a move until he'd consumed his cherished cup of joe and delved through the Wall Street Journal, and it's believed that his presence continues this tradition from beyond the grave. Incidentally, he would also often have these amenities brought to his old room, which, by the way, I actually reached out to the resort to try and locate, with no luck however, and guests staying in some of the suites have reported all sorts of odd happenings. Lastly, many a bride and groom have reported encounters with a ghostly bellhop in a 1920s uniform who appears to them just before their big day. While the identity of this man remains a mystery, incredibly, he has been known to interact with wedding parties at great lengths, and has even, on several occasions, delivered freshly pressed suits or tuxes to the groomsmen. Thanks for joining me on this adventure through some of the most haunted places in Georgia. If you enjoyed hearing my histories and ghost stories, subscribe to my channel, throw this upload a like, and share me with anyone you feel could use a good scare. I'll see you all next time.